Under an electron microscope, muscle looks like circuitry. And that turns out to be closer to true than anyone expected. That's such an ordinary fact that it's easy to miss how clever it is. A city doesn't ship coal to every house. It burns fuel in a few large places, converts the energy into a form that travels almost instantly, and sends that down wires to wherever it's needed. Your muscles do the same thing. And we only established that about 10 years ago. Let me tell you what everyone believed before, because it's what I was taught too. The standard picture was that mitochondria are scattered through a muscle cell, each one independently producing ATP, and that ATP then diffuses outward to whatever needs it. Little generators, spread evenly, each supplying its own local area. There was a problem with that picture, and researchers had noticed it. Muscle cells are big. Really big, by cellular standards. And diffusion is slow over distance. When you sprint for a bus, the energy demand in the middle of a muscle fiber goes up almost instantly. Diffusion of molecules from the edge of the cell shouldn't be able to keep up. People proposed various solutions involving shuttle molecules that speed up transport. But genetic evidence raised doubts, because animals engineered without those shuttle systems still function relatively normally. So the question stayed open. How does energy actually get distributed inside a muscle cell? In 2015, a team answered it, and the answer required a fairly extraordinary piece of imaging. They used a technique that shaves off an incredibly thin layer of a sample, images the fresh surface with an electron microscope, then shaves off another layer, over and over. Stack those images and you get a three-dimensional reconstruction of the inside of a cell at very high resolution. And what they saw was not scattered generators. The mitochondria were physically connected to each other. Not all touching by accident. Joined, through specific junction structures, into an extended network that ran throughout the cell. They named it a mitochondrial reticulum. And in the papers that followed, they consistently described it using one particular analogy. A power grid. Now here's the part that convinced me the analogy is more than decorative. Real power grids have a division of labor. Generation happens at power stations, usually placed near the fuel source. Distribution happens on lines. Step-down substations sit near the consumers. The mitochondrial reticulum has exactly that structure. When the researchers mapped where different proteins sat within the network, they found the mitochondria near the periphery of the cell, closest to the capillaries where oxygen arrives, were enriched in the proteins that generate the proton motive force. That's the voltage across the membrane I've talked about in other videos. Those peripheral mitochondria are the generating stations, sited next to the fuel supply. Meanwhile, deeper in the cell interior, near the contractile machinery and the pumps that do the actual work, the mitochondria were enriched in the proteins that use that voltage to produce ATP generation at the edge. Consumption at the point of use. Connected in between. And then they tested whether it actually conducts. They used a clever tool. A compound that sits inside mitochondria and does nothing until you shine ultraviolet light on it, at which point it collapses the membrane voltage in that spot. So you can create an electrical fault in one small region of a cell, on demand, and watch what happens. What happened is that the voltage drop spread rapidly, in a coordinated way, throughout the network. Far beyond the region they'd hit. That's conduction. The same reason a fault on a power line affects things far from the fault. Energy in the form of a potential is being carried along a connected structure, rather than molecules physically traveling. Their conclusion was that membrane potential conduction through the mitochondrial reticulum is the dominant pathway for energy distribution in skeletal muscle. Now, if you know anything about power grids, you'll have spotted the problem with all of this. Connectivity is dangerous. A connected grid distributes energy beautifully. It also distributes failures beautifully. One damaged element can propagate a fault across the whole network. That's how large blackouts happen. So the researchers went looking for whether cells solve that problem the way engineers do. They do. When they damaged a region of the network, they observed a rapid electrical and physical separation of the malfunctioning mitochondria. The junctions connecting them detached. Elongated mitochondria retracted, pulling back and condensing into more compact structures. The bad section disconnects itself. Electrically and structurally. Before the fault can travel. The paper describing this is titled Power Grid Protection of the Muscle Mitochondrial Reticulum. They found the network is segmented into subnetworks, linked at specific junctions, which is precisely how you design a real grid to be resilient. I'll be honest that the exact molecular nature of those junctions is still not fully worked out. Researchers say so themselves. But the functional behavior has been observed directly. Alright. Let's bring this back to you, because there's a finding here that matters. What happens to this network as people get older? It fragments. Research on middle-aged individuals found a fragmented network in the muscle, consisting of smaller mitochondria, and more numerous ones. Sit with that for a second, because it's counterintuitive twice over. First, fragmentation means the grid becomes a collection of islands. Less conduction. Less ability to move energy from where it's generated to where it's needed. Second, and this is the part I want you to notice, a fragmented network has more mitochondria in it, not fewer. Breaking one long connected structure into pieces increases the count. So a muscle with more mitochondria in it can be a muscle with a worse energy distribution network. That should make you cautious about any message built on maximizing a number. It's the same lesson I covered with the Sherpa research, where the population best adapted to low oxygen had roughly a quarter less mitochondrial content than lowlanders and better efficiency. Two completely different lines of evidence, same conclusion. Organization beats quantity. Now the honest limits, because there are two. The fragmentation in middle-aged muscle has been demonstrated. That part is a measurement. Whether that fragmentation is what causes reduced physical function with age is a hypothesis. The researchers stated it as a hypothesis, and I'm going to state it the same way. It's plausible, it's mechanistically sensible, and it hasn't been established as the cause. Second limit. A lot of the foundational work here was done in mouse muscle, and some of the imaging in heart cells. The human data on network fragmentation with age exists, but this is not a field with decades of human trials behind it. It's about 10 years old. So what do? The lever is movement, and I want to be careful about how strongly I put it. What's well established is that training raises the machinery that remodels this network. In a 20-week running study I've mentioned before, markers of both fission and fusion rose substantially. That's the splitting side and the joining side, both up. Your cell's capacity to reorganize the network increases. What I have not seen directly measured is a study showing that training reconnects a fragmented network in older human muscle. That's the specific claim you'd want, and I can't point you to it. So the honest version is this. Movement raises the remodeling machinery, and organization appears to matter more than count. Expecting the first to improve the second is reasonable inference, not a demonstrated result. I'd rather hand you the gap than paper over it. And where my own recommendation sits, as always, narrow. The voltage this entire network conducts is generated by the electron transport chain. CoQ10 is one of the carriers in that chain, moving electrons between complexes. Levels tend to decline as we age. I'm not claiming any supplement affects network structure, connectivity, or fragmentation. Nobody has studied that. If you want to support that machinery, the link in the description below is an affiliate link to Mitochondrial, which is PQQ and CoQ10, with a 90-day money-back guarantee. And if you want more videos where the impressive finding arrives with its own limitations attached, subscribe. This video is educational only and it's not medical advice. Talk to your doctor before starting new or more intense exercise.